Alright guys, guess where I'm at? I'm in beautiful Florence, Montana. My good buddy Cory Miller's place. We're gonna do some cool stuff. We're gonna set up my new Sequel 33 bow from Darton.
I'm Cory Miller with BlackEagle Arrows and Darton Archery, Conquest Stabilizers. I've got my good friend Dirk. We're going to set up his new Sequel 33. Kind of go through all the stuff that we do. These are some of the accessories that you're going to run, which looks like we got a black gold slider, 3-pin sight on there, great sight. We got a Hamsky rest, and we're going to run a Conquest stabilizer. And anyways, we're going to kind of go over on what we're going to set up here. One thing with this particular model, a lot of guys having a difficult time getting a Hamsky set up on these, so we're going to see if we can't get this one to work. There is another adjustment that we do have on the back side, so we're going to move that over to see if we can't get the windage on this rest. We have a mount here, so we're going to go ahead and loosen these up and slide this bracket over a little further and see if that doesn't give us enough windage to run this rest. And I'm going to slide that over and tighten that back up. What I like to do on this is I like to try to mount that up as all the way up against the riser so we don't have to worry about this. If this was mounted back here, you know, there's a lot of play in here, so if we can get it flush with the riser, make sure our forks aren't going to get pinched down in there. We're moving this out, and actually that gives us, I don't know if you can see it from back here, but that actually pushes that arrow on the outside. So that's going to give us enough windage with this particular rest to keep it down the middle. Now we're just going to go ahead and start roughing in where we want to start putting that D-loop at. On this particular bow, I definitely like my arrow to go through the burger hole, so probably going to be something about there to start with. Starting everything square, I like to put a small knocking point on top, and then I'll do a bigger knocking point on the bottom, and that will give our D-loop direction of pushing down a little bit on that knock and keeping the arrow on its rest, on the rest. The other nice thing about doing some knocking points like this is whenever and if ever you have to change your D-loop, you can cut your D-loop off. Your knocking point's not going to change. Tie your new D-loop on because that's all there. We definitely want to make sure that we have just a little bit of movement in this knocking point. You know, usually, you know, one serving length in there, so we just have a little bit of wiggle room, because when that comes back at an angle, that's all going to tighten up. If we get it too tight, when we get to that angle, it's going to really pinch in that point there. So, and now on this one, I'm going to make it a little bigger of a knocking point, where we just did like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like 4 times. We're going to do 6 or 8 on this one, and then that will help with that direction of the D-loop to push downward pressure on that arrow. If you went the opposite, that will cause an arrow to lift during draw. So if you ever notice that your arrow is lifting during the draw, you can do something like this, put a bigger knocking point on below it, and it'll change that. And or you have too tight in this position, but usually it's this knocking point. So as you can see, we got a little skinnier, a little fatter knocking point here. So when you're doing your D-loops, you know, if you fluff out the material there, that will help get a bigger ball on the end there. The one thing when you're tying the length of this loop, you definitely want to know what release you're shooting and what knock. You know, how deep is this knock coming back, and am I going to have enough room to get my release in here? So there's definitely different styles of jaws, hooks, all that type of stuff. So you kind of want to double check that. Now, granted, once I tie this and I stretch this is going to come out. So so I'm probably going to be right there. Once I burn this and stretch it, we'll have plenty of room. Because what we don't want to make this so short that we hit the back of our knock. When we hook up with this D-loop, if you come down level, you'll be able to see this probably a little bit more. And see how this is coming straight out, and then this is at an angle on that D-loop. So what that does is that it will actually push some downward pressure on the back of this knock, which pushes that arrow onto that rest. If this was flipped up the other side, that pressure would lift that arrow up. So when you see your D-loop, you should see straight and then at a slight angle coming down, and that's going to give you some good pressure. The nice thing with any limb-driven rest that I really like is that we can actually time a rest. We can determine how fast or how slow this thing will drop. You know, meaning in the draw cycle, does it lift real early or later in the draw cycle? And also when the shot fires, how fast or how soon does that rest drop? And we want to find that point where it's got enough travel to get the arrow on its direction before getting out of the way. So determining where we put this on the limb will speed up and slow that down. And then the other key on a Hamskea is this dampener. We don't want to keep this up, because during the shot, this oscillation of this weight will move this rest up and down on the shot. So we're going to want to slide this down and get it down close to that limb as possible, so that oscillation is minimal versus being up here. She's getting some good sleep in now. Not too bad there, Bert. Right out of the gate, we've got, that's pretty darn close there. Paper's going to give us an idea, but really the proof's going to be into really when we start shooting a broadhead, honestly. So a lot of times on my own personal stuff, I skip right to the finish line, which is what the broadheads are doing. So I already know if a broadhead's hitting to the right, that means I've got a left tear through paper. So that arrow's coming through, and the broadhead's going to take it on that direction. So I can usually just shoot a broadhead, see where it hits compared to my field point, and then start making adjustments. But right now, I mean, this is close, but once we shoot a broadhead, it's going to tell us how close it is. So, but this is going to be all good starting point. We'll go ahead and throw your peep in there, get that peep height set up, and start kind of working on shooting, getting it sighted in, and we'll throw a broadhead through it and see where she's going. On the drawboard here, I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. I want to check and see the travel on the rest, and then also check my timing, which when I shot it, it felt good. So on this, because our draw stop's on the other side, the way my drawboard is, it's a little difficult to see, but there's our post here and our post on the top here on the back side. So they're both touching at the same time. Now the other part, what I want to watch is how long does this arrow rest stay up, and get that arrow on its guidance, on its guidance, on its guidance, and then boom, starting to fall completely out of the way. So we don't want that to drop too soon, because if you have a rest that starts dropping too soon, typically through paper you'll see a knock high tear, because the arrow itself is actually starting to dip before it's on its path. So you'll get a false tear out of it, and you'll start tuning, advancing a cam or slowing a cam down, trying to, or moving your rest up and down to try to fix a problem that is actually just in the rest on how fast it's dropping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the press, because I've got old ears on my press, so this bow with the past parallel limb like this likes to squirt out. So it's always on that, I'll always want to try and back my limbs out. So we want to loosen up our locks here before we do our limb. So I'm going to go ahead and back this out 5 turns before I put it in the press. On this particular bow, we can actually go 7 turns on here. 5 should do me enough to change that limb tip a little bit. And then we'll install your peep. So because this peep actually has a couple different, 2 different grooves in here, and that changes the angle of that peep. Those are nice to, before you tie it in, go ahead and make sure that that angle is good, and really that's pointing flat, so that's sitting good at full draw. And that's going to determine draw lengths, axle lengths, all that type of stuff on which groove you put that peep in. Okay, so we matched up your poundage to your other bow, kind of measured out where your peep is, but we want to finalize that. And so in order to do that, I definitely, especially on a big peep like this, that's a lot of weight, a lot of size, a lot of spreading, and I don't want that peep shooting out, because it's going to hit right here on that riser, and it's probably going to bounce off and take your eye out. So
put your eye out, kid.
Yeah. So always nice to go ahead and just put a little bit of wrap around this thing just to keep it in the string, and then we will finalize it once we know exactly where we're at and tie it in so it won't move. But right now we can still move it, but it won't take your eye out. Get a little bit of a right here. better results. So I want you to anchor like you normally do. I don't want you to close your eyes. I don't want you to settle in. You should draw back like you normally do. And you tell me, does that need to come up or down?
Up.
Up a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Too high. That's pretty good.
Go ahead and let that down. I'm gonna have you draw her back again, and then don't shoot it because it's pretty loose. It can still kind of slide up and down. Okay. Gonna let that down, and we'll tie her in so she won't move. All right. As far as tying in peeps, everybody's kind of got a way. I don't know if there's any certain one that's any better than others. I've tied them in umpteen different styles. There's definitely some I don't like. Mainly just if you have to cut the peep out, man, some of them can make a real pain in the butt. So the one that I kind of like is this. And what I do on this is I want to have my tag in on both sides, so I can do a half hitch on the bottom on this side, and I'll usually do 2 or 3 on this, and then I'll do this one on the top. I get my hands from shaking too much coffee this morning. So what this is doing is what I call like little speed bumps. So it's locking in top and bottom. So now this won't slide, but then we'll serve on out so it really doesn't move. But so we'll do 3. I mean, honestly, you could probably leave it right here. It's not going to go anywhere. But on a hunting bow, I like to overdo it because we're dragging these things through the brush. I'm getting hung up on things. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do wraps. I'm not actually doing ties. And I'm going to work it down to the groove. Usually 3 wraps. And then I'll start my back tie. And sometimes superstition comes into play, so I like 7. So as you do 7 on that back end there. Yeah. I'm gonna go one more in there just because she's a little fat. And that is tied. Will not move. We'll burn these tag ends off. And that is ready. What are you doing? Go ahead and try out a broadhead. We're going to shoot the kudu 125 2-blade.
Keep it from going clinkety clank.
So we just did just a rough sight in, so that the mark itself, the height and all that isn't good or set. Windage is somewhat close, so we did that at 15 yards with a field point. And you're shooting a what broadhead again?
I'm gonna shoot an expandable. It's an Evolution Outdoors hide.
But it's more of a hybrid.
Right.
Which means it's
two-blade
got a
expandable.
2-blade. So the closest thing that I have to that, because really the expandable part's not gonna dictate the flight. It's more of that front blade. So I put a kudu on here, 125 head, and so that's our field point. And there's our broadhead. So that's at 20 yards. So that's it's a great starting point. I don't think we're gonna have or see much any issue other than now just really getting good sight marks. But you do a 30, 40, 50, so we might be pretty close to being on 30. We might want to see it maybe about here.
Yeah, 30's about there, but honestly, if we're 20 right here, I might just sight it in for 20 and then have my sight tape be at 30, so I can always shoot. Because my backyard,
Okay,
I shoot
yeah,
20
then you
anyway,
shoot
so.
20, and then that way you're dialed.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, yep.
I've had 3 Dartons now, a Veracity last year. Now I've got the Sequel 33s this year. And literally on the tuning of it, it's been just plug and play. We've shot them 1 or 2 shots through paper and we're dialed. I can't say that about the bows I've been using for the last 4 years. Previous bows, we had to shim, we had to do a lot of stuff to tune those bows. These are plug and play. So that to me, that means a lot, especially for broadheads. I mean, when the first shots out of it for me, I can hit my broadhead and my field point right next to each other, almost ruin the arrow. That's a win.
All right, well, I think we got everything dialed up on your bow. It looks good. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can contact me at Darton Archery or BlackEagle. Customer service line, I'm usually on the phones if I'm not out on the road, answering you guys' questions. So I appreciate you coming out, Dirk, and giving me the opportunity to set your bow up, and can't wait to see some kill pictures.